Today we're going to continue our work here on the MVC Music Store application. We managed to get through the first 8 sections complete and working. We're starting here. We are at the top of page 109. And before I began working this morning, I went ahead and I created a version of my work so that I have a safe copy to go back to. I also made sure that all my files are in order and I have everything opened up in Visual Studio already. So get yourself geared up to work and let's get started. All right. Well, if you recall, the last thing that we did is we managed to get the Ajax components working that allowed us to add and delete entries. And that's pretty cool, right? Because we basically added all these different CRUD operations. We pulled in some files. We had to make some tweaks to those files to get them to work with the project. But ultimately, everything was working. So the last piece of the puzzle here is to set up registration and checkout. And we do have a number of pages left. It's not a lot of pages, but there are some challenging things coming down the line. And I know there were a couple people that were having issues with some components of that. Those that worked ahead, and we'll see if we can address those today as we're working. All right, so the first thing that we're going to turn our attention to is the checkout controller. And it says here, the point of it will be to collect the shopper's address and payment information. We're going to require the users to register with their site prior to checking out, so this controller will require authorization. Now, we already did the authorization component in the ability to get into the store manager, and you guys saw it's pretty easy to do. Once you have those roles configured inside that admin tool, you just add that little snippet of text to one of the controllers, and it just automatically flags the need for login, and then sets the permission as to who's allowed to go in. Okay, so that's a pretty essential component. Now, what they're showing here on the screen, it says the users are going to go to the checkout process from the shopping cart by clicking the checkout button. That's pretty intuitive, I suppose. If the user's not logged in, they will be prompted to log in. So we got to orchestrate that. So you're going to see something that looks like this. Now, did you guys run the application? Did you try clicking checkout? Why don't we just do that right now and let's see what happens, just so we have kind of like a baseline understanding of what is working right now and what's not working. So go into the store, pick a category, add it to your cart, and go ahead and click checkout. And then you can see that we don't have this component written. If you notice though, look at the URL. Are you guys noticing that? Yeah, well, it's not there. If it was there, hopefully it would be working. But the controller that is responsible for handling that checkout button already has, a little script in there that's taking it to that URL. So we're going to be basically building out those components. So you can see we're going to probably have a controller called checkout, and we're probably going to have some sort of a method called address and payment. Okay, so that's just kind of a little foreshadowing clue there. All right, go ahead, close that tab, shut the application down, and let's get to work. All right, they're showing you, they keep going here and they keep showing you the screens that we're hoping to build and what it's going to look like. And then what happens, if you have some issues, like whether the checkout is complete, if there's some sort of an error with your order. And see, that was good for 4 pages, so we're that much closer to the end. So if you want to look at the positive side of it. All right, so it says here, while the shopping process is anonymous, it says the user clicks on the checkout button, they'll be required to register and log in, and that's what we were just talking about. And then It also indicates here, and you guys are probably used to this, that usually when you go to a website and you're shopping for stuff and you maybe throw stuff in the cart, or even if you're just looking at it, you kind of hope that it remembers the state of where it's at. So it says here, users will expect that we maintain their shopping cart information between visits, so we will need to associate the shopping cart information with the user when they complete the registration or login. Now, I always think about, how I use, Amazon, and a lot of you guys I'm sure use it too, and how it keeps kind of track of what you're doing, and if you're like my wife will just throw everything she's interested in into the cart. And then I look at the shopping cart. It's like, your cart total is like $3,000. I'm like, oh no. Right? I don't have to check out with all that. But the fact that it remembers is kind of like a handy tool for her, because at least the stuff that she found that she might want to buy or is thinking about buying is all there. All right. So it's not really that difficult to do some of these tasks, given the fact that we have so much of the application already built. Now it's just basically adding controllers, adding models, and then figuring out actions and how those particular actions are going to execute. All right, our first task then, as indicated here, it's going to be to open the account controller class. So let's do that. So click on that to bring it up. And we're going to add a using statement referencing the MVC music store models. Yeah, and that is the case, but they want to make sure that you have it there. So no big deal, we have that already, step 1 complete. Then add the following migrate shopping cart method. Now the place to add that method most logically will be at the bottom of the document. And please keep in mind that we have multiple sets of curly braces that we're dealing with. Also notice that we do have the status code section that's automatically generated. So I'm at the very bottom of the account controller model, account controller. And very bottom of the document should look like this. And by default, the status code area is collapsed. Okay, very easy to miss. Don't be deleting it. All right, so my suggested spot for inserting the code is right here. So above the status codes and below the action result for change password. So I'm just going to create a spot here, come back and grab the code. All right, let's start with that. Now, one thing that you should notice, even if you're not completely understanding of all the mechanics of it, is the fact that we are going to be working with session information here that ASP.NET does automatically, and you guys kind of learned that when it creates those like really weird cryptic little strings when you look at your view source. So that is one of the things that helps to drive this. It says, next, modify the logon post action to call migrate shopping cart. So we need to go find logon, and that's going to be up here a ways. There's log off, so log on must be right before it. So we're not looking to replace this whole thing. What we're looking to do is to add this line of code, the highlighted code. And you guys should verify that, because it's been probably good 8-9 months since I've looked at this application. And just make sure that all the rest of it is matching up. Is the code the same? Don't just take my word for it. Most of it looks okay, right? So all we're adding is just this one line right into this spot. I'm just going to get the same layout here. So all that's happening is when we're going to basically, check to see if the user is valid, we are also triggering this little method to make sure that the session information is being stored. That's going to be part of helping the information to persist. It says make the same change to the register post action. So let's find that one. That's right here. So we're trying to match it up again. Now this time I didn't highlight the difference. And I see a couple of things happening here. Well, for one, it looks to me like I have like 2 action results for register. You guys seeing that? I got one here, and I got one here. Is that problematic? Okay. One of them is HTTP post, but let's just say that even regardless of that, can I do that? Can I have 2 methods with the same name in an application? Right, and it also, one accepts a parameter and one does not. Okay. Yeah, that would be an overload. Somebody here is calling it a signature. It kind of depends on what language you're coming from, but yes, that's correct. It does have a different signature to it. So let's go ahead and just take this portion of it, and you see what I'm doing? I'm just doing like the side-by-side checking as best I can, and then you guys tell me where that code goes. So it's this piece of code again, right? If I can get my Adobe Acrobat to allow me to select some text here, and I'm actually going to highlight that so I can see it next time. Just make sure it's the same. That part looks fine, and that part looks fine. Good idea. Made a few significant changes here. Go ahead and do Control S to save. All right. So now the message that the author gives us, he goes, that's it. Now an anonymous shopping cart will be automatically transferred to a user account upon successful registration or login. So the tiny little bit of code that we added. And just to review, we added a migrate shopping cart, which basically grabs the cart contents and associates it with a session key, is what it's doing. And then we added that little snippet of code. Where do we put that? Migrate shopping cart, which calls upon that and passes that information back over to whatever method is using it. All right, now we're going to create the controller. It says right-click on the controllers folder, add a new controller named checkout controller. So to not have typos here, I'm just going to copy it. So on the controllers folder, right-click, add controller called checkout controller. That's a little redundant. Checkout controller. And we want it to use an empty template. No other choices to really make here, so go ahead and click add. And there you can see our controller is created. It says first add the Authorize attribute above the controller class declaration to require users to register before checkout. All right, so that will get added right to this spot here. And all you have to do is type Authorize in square brackets. The auto type kicks in. Let it do its thing. Yeah, we're not specifying who, right? Because it doesn't matter if it's an admin. What admins can buy stuff too, right? The author here is kind of pointing out that before this is the same thing that we did, but we also enforced that it had to be an administrator role because it was for the store manager. Okay, the next thing that he's pointing out here is what approach we're going to use in terms of working with payments. And he says, for the sake of simplicity, we're not dealing with payment information. We're just going to use a promo code. Now, speaking from personal experience in managing a number of different payment type systems and how to deal with payments, all the complexity we've dealt with thus far is equivalent to the complexity that you would have with payments alone. And all of that complexity added to the previous complexity kind of compounds, and then when you add shipping in. So when you really start delving into this e-commerce realm, when you're coding it from scratch, it can get very complicated very quickly because all of a sudden you really get into some really deep programming logic. Now, a lot of the shipping companies and payment companies have systems in place to help make it a lot smoother than it used to be. In many cases, people opt not to hand code things because it really is kind of problematic. And they get code directly from, the payment gateways, from the shippers that integrate beautifully with their systems. But whenever you're dealing with systems outside of your own, there's always complications. There's always complications. So it's never necessarily a smooth process. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make some tweaks here to that file, a checkout controller. And we're going to add, it says here, a field to hold the instance of music store entities class named store DB. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to grab this code here. What a lucky customer. Yeah, and this is actually kind of a important thing. Where are we putting it? First of all, I'm going to make sure I copy that. And that's going to go just inside the top of the controller, so it'll kind of sit global to it. Notice that we are missing this particular reference. And you guys remember how to fix that? And you see the little steps I'm taking where I'm like right-clicking and getting the... Yeah, so that's what I'm using the automatic tools this time to do it. And the question is am I adding the right thing? Okay, then I'll take your word for it. All right, so you can see the underlines disappeared. Control S to save. All right, so we're going to add some controller actions here. We're going to add a section for address and payment. That's the one that we were trying to trigger before. And then notice that this will also have a post method using the same pattern. Once again, take a look at the fact that we do have an HTTP post. So this is a little bit larger method here. So I'm adding a second chunk of code. This spans a couple pages, so let's grab all that. little pet peeve here with Adobe Acrobat. Copy that, and that's going to go right here. Let's keep track of all your curly brackets. I'm going to Control A to select everything, and then I'm going to format the document. And for whatever reason, it's not formatting. Yeah, I think I put the curly brackets in the wrong spot. Let me just... Yeah, that's possible, but maybe I didn't grab all the curly brackets. Yeah, I think that is the case. I'm missing a curly bracket here. All right, let me just go ahead and try to format that now, just to clean it up. Still doesn't want to. All right, well, I have a couple of underlines here, so let's take these one at a time. Oh, I see what's going on. I'm posting the same content twice. So my second copy didn't take. So let me just try that again. All right, that's much better. All right, Control A, and then let's format. See, it won't format if you got errors, right? Because it doesn't know what to format, doesn't know where stuff starts and stops. All right, it says, upon successful completion of the checkout process, users will be redirected to the complete controller action, which is this one that we're about to add. And it says it's going to perform a simple check to validate that the order does indeed belong to the logged in user before giving a confirmation number. So that will have to come here. We need to leave two sets of curly brackets at the bottom, one for the class and one for the namespace. And you can see, once again, my copy and paste did not copy properly. Be careful of that. Save it. All right, so then they have the code as it should appear in its completed form. So what I would implore you to do, because I'm going to do it myself, is just to kind of like side by side it and just take a look and make sure that everything is matching up. So, well, my using statements are different, but whatever we automatically generated, or excuse me, Visual Studio automatically generated, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm leaving it in place. Probably the most important thing for us here is that the music store model is present. Be very systematic and just make sure that everything is coming in. Now, you guys noticing that index is removed? Okay, that was my intuition, unless, yeah, I suppose that's a possibility. That's way. If it did tell us to replace, I guess I didn't read that instruction. All right, so I'm removing that. Then we go to address and payment, and notice that they do have the non-HTTP post version of it, which just returns the view. Then the second version, which is basically like an overload method that grabs all the values of the form and passes them in to the application. This stuff all looks the same. Also notice that they're using a try-catch. So just in case information is not behaving properly, it doesn't crash the application. And then we have the complete method at the bottom. And so far, so good. I think that everything looks okay. Okay, so we were all checking our code here to make sure everything is consistent, and I think for most of us here it is. And if we're having any issues, we'll come back and try to do a little cleanup. All right, next step is let's create the address and payment view. Right-click on the address and payment controller, and notice it says right-click on one of. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to click on the lower one since it's right there. We're going to add a view. They want us to have some specific settings here, so I'm just pulling that up. We can take a look side by side. So we do want a strongly typed view. We do want the MVC music store models. And then this is one of those situations again. This is based on the order model class. And if for any reason you do not see that listed here, that's a tip right there that you want to do a build. Probably a clean and then a build. The scaffold template, we're going to use edit. That allows us to pre-build the components that allow for the changing of things. And there's, I don't think any other settings here we need to change. All right, so go ahead and click Add. You can see it created quite a bit of stuff for us automatically. Okay, let's read this little tidbit he's got here. He says, this view will make use of two of the techniques we looked at while building the Store Manager Editor view. It says we're going to use the HTML editor for model to display the form fields. Right, and you can see that right here in action. And we will leverage the validation rules using an order class with validation attributes. Okay, we're going to start updating the form to use that, followed by additional text box for the promo code. So we are going to be making some edits here to this file. So once again, let's proceed carefully. You can see we got our scripts up here at the top. We have our using HTML begin form. And then it says the complete code is shown below. Now I seem to have a whole lot more in here than they do. What about you guys? Okay. So we got some issues here then to contend with. Or do we? Okay, so a lot of us here in class are noticing that when we generated this and we experimented, we tried it off of the one that has all the code in it and creating a view off the one that has nothing but the view in it. And we're making a little bit of a guess that maybe either they're missing a page of like all this code or that we're just adding these two. Because if you look at these, there's a shipping area and then there's a payment area where we're going to put the promo code. So we're going to make some adjustments. And I'm looking at some of the stuff that's being generated here. So I'm making adjustments to the title. We know that this is going to, this view is going to be for address and payment. So we do need to have like the person's name and address and all the shipping stuff, obviously, right? And if you look back at the screens that they were showing us before, and maybe that's not a bad idea to scroll back up in the PDF here. Remember all those screens that we were looking at? So this is what we are generating. So see how we have shipping information and payment information? Now, if you look at this up here, they're calling it order, right? Here, now I got to go back down. I don't want to go past it either. Yeah, and I'm thinking that what's happening, and this is just a guess, and I'm gonna proceed blindly because I'm trying to recall how we did this last time, frankly, and I don't recall offhand. Um, but the fact that we're switching to this for model thing, we're going to start by updating the form code to use HTML editor for model as opposed to using what they have here. Are you guys noticing that each one of these is being built individually? I think that what they're expecting us to do is to use this command that will, in essence, replace all of that. Are you hearing me? So I'm experimenting here. I'm gonna put in this little part of the code. I'm gonna copy this. The worst thing that's gonna happen is what? It's gonna fail. Okay. So they want this part to be called shipping information. So let's copy this, and then I'm gonna put it in place of this, and then I'm going to eliminate the remainder. And instead of just eliminating it, folks, yeah, I'm going to cut it. And I'll just drop it into, and actually, I'm kind of waffling in my head as I'm doing this, so please excuse my wishy-washiness. I'm going to copy all of that, including the line that I changed. And I'm just going to cut it, and I'll just open up Notepad++ here. And just leave it there. Now I'll paste that, now I'll paste that line in. Because you notice there's a difference in the command. And if my intuition is correct here, this will kind of handle all of it for us. Now, the other thing that you should notice, and really, honestly, at this point, we can copy all this code. So my thought here, okay, once again, you guys are watching my thinking process in process, because I usually don't jump around this much. I'm going to actually take everything, right, but everything else, I'm going to paste it over here. So basically, I'm getting from here on down, and I'm saving it. So I'm basically leaving this part in place. Yeah, this is one of those where maybe you guys want to watch me mess it up before you mess it up, before you copy my actions. And then I am going to copy the code that's here and just replace it. No, I am basically replacing the book content. That's what I'm doing. That is correct. All right. And I'll do a little formatting here. And that's a good sign that it actually formatted. It's also a good sign that nothing is underlining. All right. Worst case scenario, we just go back and redo the steps again. All right. But there is a difference in the command. And that is, I think, the key here. We also have 2 field sets, which is what we need, and we still have the submit at the bottom. Save your work. All right, so we're making the assumption that that was correct. Okay, we're just making that assumption. All right, now we're going to set up the validation rules for the order. All right, and it says here, as we did previously for the album model, right-click the models folder, add a class named order. In addition to the validation attributes we used previously for the album, we also be using a regular expression. Now, don't we already have a class name order? Okay. So I'm not just imagining it. So I think that's a mistake in the instructions. It must be. In addition to the validation attributes we used previously for the album, we'll also be using a regular expression. Now, the regular expression aside, once again, I have some concerns here.
Don't worry about that. Just follow the book. Maybe it'll lead you to where you want.
Maybe it will.
As long as I would save it before you do it, though.
Well, you know, the problem with this is that basically we already have all the getters and setters. We're just adjusting it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the stuff, instead of incrementally adding everything, I'm just going to just replace everything inside the order class. So I'm going to replace all of this, because we're basically just adding to it. So I might want to actually add a little comment there, maybe for, you know, future iterations of doing this. Good catch. And apparently I have more problems than that. All right, let me Control Z. Aha. All right, we're also noticing here that this is a partial class, so we're having a little bit of a discussion about how we should proceed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed with my intuition. And my intuition tells me that I'm going to replace all this code. This is what I was trying to do before, but I'm redoing it because it wasn't going so smoothly. Yep, and let's check those and make sure that we have all the stuff. And we do, yeah, we do have a couple things up here that we don't have. Well, isn't that interesting? I have 2 using system collection generic. That's not good. So we should get rid of that. And then it looks like we're missing these several using statements, all of which seem like they're probably pretty important, and all of which will probably help to get rid of all those underlines, thank goodness. All right, let's do a Control A, and then format. And it's still not formatting, which concerns me, because it indicates that we do have some sort of an issue. Oh, I see what I'm doing. See what I'm doing wrong? Yeah, I have 2 of these. So okay, that's a good sign. All right, so Yeah, that. So these last couple of actions are kind of touchy, right? Because the book's not really guiding us so well, or the PDF, whatever. It's 100 pages. It's a book. Um, so let's cross our fingers here that what we're doing is right. Worst thing that happens is we go back and start over, but not all the way to the beginning. All right. So let's just assume that that's correct. All right. So I think at this point what they're saying is that we should try to run this. And they're actually not asking us to run it, right? It says attempting to submit the form with missing or invalid information will show an error message. And I don't know if they're, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and try to run it. And cross my fingers. Okay. We'll check out. It is asking for username and password, right? Please enter your username and password. Register if you don't have an account. Did we create something for register yet?
Yeah, it wasn't a password, like, $7
Yeah, that's what. Well, whatever you set your password to be is what your password is.
We made it something different times.
Okay. All right. So I see one little problem that's totally fixable, and that is this. See how it's like doubling up? Yeah, it's doing it twice. Must have pasted it twice. But see how the form is showing up in its entirety, though? Even though we deleted all that stuff, so that was the right thing to do. All right. I'm just going to close the page. I'm not expecting it to do anything beyond that at this point. Um, although, it's saying that the validation should work. You know what? Let's launch it again and try it. I just guess I'd rather be on the safe side. You will need to log in again. No, actually, it sees me as logged in still. That's kind of problematic, actually. Um, but if we try to submit the order, it is throwing all the error codes. The one thing that we added in here that's different, and you've learned about this in your other classes as well, is what a regular expression is. And if you haven't noticed, regular expressions are the same with every programming language because it's really a language unto itself, and all of them basically use that same library to, run it. But here, what they're looking for is for email that it's a valid email. So if you want to try to type some stuff in, you see how the validation is instantaneous? Yeah, the moment you start typing, a post back happens. Throw the @ sign in there, a couple more characters, and a dot, and a couple characters. Free is a wonderful price. Then you would submit your order. Of course, we don't have the next part of it built yet, so you should get an error at this point. All right. So that's actually a success, believe it or not. Let's get the application to stop running. Somebody was pointing out, where's that address thing? That's going to be in the checkout controller. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's going to be in the view. Oh, yeah, there's an H2 at the top. and there's an H2 here. You can just pull one out or the other. I think I'm going to pull out this one. I think I'd rather use the one that's inside the using statement. All right. So we're pretty self-assured that's going to fix, right? That's just simple HTML stuff. All right, let's go back. All right, I'm hearing a lot of nervous voices in here saying, should we save? And you know what? That's probably a good thing to do right now. So let's just go back into Visual Studio. I'm going to shut her down. And then I'm going to come back to where I've got my work stored. And I'm going to make a copy. And what page are we on? $120. All right. I'm counting it as 123 complete. And it doesn't like that. Thank you, Windows. And this is a quirk with Windows. If you guys get this happening, this is a known problem. You can try doing little refreshes here. Maybe close the file window, come back in. If you have Visual Studio open, even if the project's not open, that can still cause a problem. There are some quirky little fixes you can do, but frankly, they're not worth the hassle. So I'm just trying to see if it'll stick. All right. I think this is a good time to stop the video. And we'll fix this. I'm going to start a fresh video anyhow, and I'm sure you guys can figure out how to rename. But apparently we have some little fragments in memory somewhere that it's preventing it from renaming the folder. But I do want to rename it before I start the next step. All right, so this video ends here, and proceed to the next video for the last segment.